So I want you to find a comfortable position, and we're going to meditate for about 40 minutes. And begin by bringing your body into a posture that's comfortable, where your spine is straight, your hands and your legs can relax. And this is a meditation where we will be present with our body, do some body contemplation, and just feel the sensations that arise in the body. And come to this meditation with an attitude of loving kindness. So we begin with loving kindness and our attention at the top of our head. And it's as if we're bringing warm oil onto the front of our head and letting it slowly move down over our forehead, really soothing the skin and the muscles and coming down slowly over the eyes. And the cheeks and the nose. And this is a very soothing warmth, bringing a healing balm to the face. And bit by bit, it comes down over the cheeks, all the way over your nose, and the front of your ears, your lips and your jaw, soothing the entire face. And coming down over your chin and your neck, just slowly moving down to your shoulders. This warm oil comes down over the front of your shoulders. And then let it seep down over the front of your arms, your upper arms, and then your lower arms, and just the fronts and the wrists, and your hands. Depending upon how your hands are resting, it might be the back of your hands or the front of your hands, whatever's facing forwards. And this warm oil comes down, soothing every part, right to the fingertips. Bring your attention back to your shoulders and feel this warm, soothing oil coming down over your chest, coming down rib by rib onto your stomach, slowly descending on the front of your body down your abdomen, the lower part of your belly, all the way down, and then onto the front of your thighs. Feel it move down the front of your thighs to your knees and over your knees, and then down the front of your lower legs, and your ankles, and the tops of your feet, all the way to the end of your toes. Having completely covered the whole front of your body from top to toe, warm, soothing, healing oil. And coming back to the top of your head, feel this soothing oil coming down one hair at a time over your hair, your back of your head, sides, slowly coming down the backs of your ears, down to the nape of your neck. The whole back of your neck is soothed. Down onto your shoulders, the back. Down the backs of your arms. Down the back of both arms, the upper parts. Over your elbows. Down the back side of your lower arms. And your wrists. And the side of your hands that were not covered earlier, completely covered with this warm, soothing oil. Down to the ends of your fingers. Bring your attention back to your shoulders and feel this warm, soothing oil coming down over your shoulders and the back, and the shoulder blades, down each of your vertebrae of the spine and your back ribs, all the way down your torso, down to your waist, the whole back, soothing your back. And then this warm oil comes down onto your hips, down over your buttocks, onto the backs of your thighs. And it gradually descends down the backs of your upper legs, onto the back of your knees, the back of your calves, lower legs, all the way down to your ankles, and over the heels of your feet and the bottom of your feet to the end of your toes. Now you bring your attention back to the top of your head, and it's as if you open the top of your head and this warm, soothing oil comes down inside, soothing and healing and cleansing inside your skull, your brain, your eyes, your sinuses, your mouth, inside your ears. Relaxing and soothing all the muscles, the nerves, tendons, and everything else that's inside of your head. And then it moves down into the throat, soothing, leaving a feeling of warmth and cleanliness. Down into your upper body, just at the top, and then down into your arms, the insides of your arms, through your arm bones, your muscles, your joints at the shoulders and the elbows, through the bones and muscles of your lower arms, through all the fine bones of your wrists, and down into the inside of your hands, the muscles and the bones, the nerves, tendons, ligaments, everything that is inside the skin of your hands, soothed, warmed, cleansed. Then you come back to your shoulders. When you feel this warm oil descending inside your body, inside the cavity of your chest, through your spine, through your rib bones, through your sternum, the breastbone, and through your lungs, restoring them and healing them, cleansing them, and your heart. This warm oil moves down through the muscles, the other tissues, into the spleen and the liver, the gallbladder, the pancreas, the kidneys and stomach, the glands, the intestines, bladder, and everything else that's found inside your body. Warmed and soothed and healed. And down inside your legs, the top parts, through the thighs, through the bones, even the marrow of the bones, down through the muscles, blood vessels and nerves, down through the knees, the lower legs with the muscles and bones there, the ankles, and down inside your feet, muscles, bones, and everything else. Everything has been touched in your entire body. Leaving it relaxed and at ease. can bring our attention to our breathing. Feel the ease in the body. And invite more relaxation and ease into the mind. Resting our awareness on our breath. And aware of any sensations of pleasure in the body, tingling or warmth. Happiness. Might feel this sense of loving kindness towards your whole body, every part of it. Let that sense of loving kindness grow and develop to envelop your entire body. You can rest in this feeling of metta, loving kindness, and warmth, happiness and ease. And from here, you can focus on your breathing or on that feeling of loving kindness as you wish. Quieting the mind, observing whatever arises from within, letting go of any thoughts that might arise, being present, aware, and content. Welcome back. Okay, so I was thinking of sharing a few thoughts about expectations and seeing what you think of that. And I don't know what expectations arise in your mind when I say I'm going to talk about expectations, but hopefully I exceed them. It's kind of funny. One monk in our tradition recently said that he went to visit one of the branch monasteries that he's in charge of, and he said that the monks there exceeded his expectations because he didn't have any. And it's funny, but it's also true that a lot of times it's our expectations of what things should be like that bring us disappointment and suffering. So if I think that people should act a certain way and they don't, or that, you know, the workplace should be a certain way and it's not, or the car should start when I try to start it and it doesn't, or you can think of probably, you know, a half a dozen things right off the top of your head that you expect. It seems reasonable a lot of times to have those expectations because most of the time things do work that way. But then we have some expectations that aren't reasonable at all. Like we might expect that we should be able to change someone in our life, a parent or a child. We should be able to change our partner, you know, convince them or somehow help them improve, or, you know, and oftentimes and they don't want that, so it doesn't work, and we can be really disappointed about that. But if we let go of those expectations and really see who they are, where they're at, what they're needing, then it's possible that things can be very different. But sometimes this really involves a lot of letting go. And of course, letting go is a huge part of the practice. Letting go when we're meditating so that we can actually experience peace and bliss. Letting go in life so that we reduce our suffering. And letting go when we're confronted with challenges in our own minds, like, you know, really painful feeling, or maybe some self-recrimination or blame, or painful memories. Basically, it comes down to wanting things to be different than they are. That's where our suffering comes from. So one of the challenges in the practice is to learn how to let go. But even before we can let go, we have to have the mindfulness that helps us see the way things actually are. I mean, to the degree, I don't mean in the big sense of the dhamma, because that we get to that. That's important. It's important to have our intention leaning or inclining in that direction, that we see the truth of the way things actually are in all ways. We see that there is aging, sickness, and death. And we may have expectations about staying healthy, or we may have expectations about being able to keep our body young in one way or another. We may have expectations about how long we'll live. And a lot of times there's an expectation in the mind, and it's not something we actually think consciously, but we know we've been holding that expectation when something happens and we're surprised. Something that's actually just a normal part of life, having an accident or losing something. And the Buddha said, these are the things that are just normal parts of life. Things break, things age, people age, bodies change, we die, others around us die. But we rarely expect that to happen any day, any particular day. I've been told that people who work with people who are dying, and it's been made clear that they only have a short time to live, still that day that they die, they don't expect to die that day. There's something that keeps our minds from really looking at the realities of life. And you might say, well, what's the advantage to dwelling on that? Well, it's not really about dwelling. It's just about seeing the truth. The advantage is that we are not afraid of it. We're not shocked or disappointed when things happen. And I love a story that one of our elder Sri Lankan monks told. I tell it every once in a while because it really touched me. I mean, he was going in for surgery. I think he was in his 90s already, maybe. He's going in for surgery on his heart. And he said he had an opportunity to talk with 4 different doctors before they took him in for the surgery. Each one came by, the main surgeon and then the surgeon's helper and the anesthesiologist and whoever, maybe the cardiologist. And each one, he said to them, if I don't survive this surgery, I don't want you to feel bad. Because I'm a monk and I've been a monk since I was in my 20 years old. And ever since then, every night I've reflected on death. And it's really fine if I die during this procedure. Don't want you to feel bad. This is natural. And it's kind of sweet to see him in that situation. Excuse me. Being concerned about how the doctors would feel. Because we all have this wish for things to turn out the way we want them to turn out. And we have to, if we really want to look at the realities of life, it's important to have the spiritual kind of juice, you might say, the spiritual practice that helps us to be happy at a deep level. Meditation practice can really yield these helpful, deep, happy feelings. In Pali, they're piti and sukha, kind of blissful states of mind. When we meditate and we experience these kinds of things, and by the way, if we have expectations to experience them, they're much less likely to come. But if we just do the practice, focusing on our meditation object and letting the mind and the body become more quiet and tranquil, and then just observing what happens, then these kinds of experiences come. And they help us have a level of contentment in our minds that make it easier to look at the true nature of life. And so it's really important to have a regular meditation practice. And also, of course, you took the 5 precepts earlier, which is, I always feel happy when people do that. I think it's a wonderful thing. when we make the determination to not harm, not kill, to not steal, to not lie, to not engage in sexual misconduct or harmful use of sexual energy, to not use drugs and alcohol, because then you become someone who no one has to fear. And then just think about that. If no one anywhere needs to be afraid of you, that's an incredible gift that you can give the world. And that kind of thing makes us happy at a deep level. It brings a kind of stability and comfort to the mind. We don't have to worry about, the ramifications of what we've done. And if there are things that we've done that are in the past that we are not happy about, we can make the determination not to do that again, and we can forgive and let go. Forgiveness is a big part of what makes our whole mind, our being comfortable and happy. And so letting go of the past and practicing mindfulness in the present and living with precepts and restrained when we're feeling very strong feelings, like anger, fear, resentment, not acting from that kind of mental state. And then we have the foundation that helps us to be able to look at the true nature of things, to look at the impermanence of everything in this world, including our own bodies, to really appreciate the suffering we experience when we want things to be different. We want to keep things the same and they change. We want something to change and it doesn't, at least not in the way we want it to, and so on. But when we really are willing to see that discomfort and turn towards it, like the Buddha said in the First Noble Truth, then we can understand it and we can let go of what causes it. So the impermanence, the unsatisfactoriness of things, and then the fact that none of us really me or mine. Now, you may know all about this. You may have heard it many times, and you may have observed it a lot in your own experience. And it's good to remember that we can come back to those principles and that practice of seeing, in Pali, it's anicca, dukkha, anatta, with anything, everything. Whenever we feel uncomfortable, whenever we feel, dukkha, whenever we feel anything, like that, we can turn to those and look at the nature of what we're clinging to, what our expectations are. And we can look at how to put them down and notice the freedom that we feel when we do that. That we really can change our own mental state. We really can change the circumstances of our life. But it's an inside job. I know someone who's going to visit a family member that he hasn't seen in a very long time. That is, it's actually his father, and he's concerned because it was a very abusive relationship. His father is ill and who knows how long he will live, and he feels he must go. And we talked about the expectations that might be present. And part of the expectations is that he should be able he thinks he should be able to do something about this, to help his father in some way, move him into an assisted living facility, or do something to help him financially, or, something that, some way to make things better. And yet his father is probably not going to want any of that. So we talked about how to let go of the expectations and even the idea of helping in any way that the father doesn't say, I want this. Like listening to other people, looking at where they're at, and then supporting them, even if you don't agree with the choices that they're making for their own life. And of course, there's always the arising of the memories and thoughts of things that were painful in the past. And it takes mindfulness to be able to be present enough when that's happening that we don't get caught up in it again. And this is really a profound application of mindfulness. This is true whether it's with someone that we had a lot of painful interaction with in the past, or it's, going to work and being around people and disagreeing with what they're doing, or just, going through our day with any kind of feeling that arises. Can we be mindful and present and take care of it within and not let it seep out into the interaction in a way that creates more harm? And the result is that as we get used to like observing our own feelings, our own mental states, and practicing, really deciding what we're going to think about instead of dwelling on some interaction that happened that's painful, turning the mind maybe towards compassion, maybe towards those three characteristics, understanding that, yeah, people act these ways, say these painful things and do things that are unskillful, but we don't have to take that in and take it on and expect that we can make it change. Now, none of this is saying that we can't change things for the better. It's just that we need to go about it with skill and a kind of respect for the other people involved, instead of thinking I'm going to apply my way. And be aware that, there's a time to offer advice, and it's usually when we're asked, and there are times to just let it go and be a source of support through listening and being present with them. So again, letting go. So one of the real skills to develop is to know when it's time to let go and when it's time to, put in more effort to try to turn things in a good direction. And you may already, I'm sure, have experience with both of those and some ideas about what you look for in such situations. How do you know? How do you know whether you should sit through the pain when you're meditating or change position? How do you know whether you should, speak up and tell someone what's going on when they haven't asked? How do you know when to push harder to try to convince someone of something? And a lot of it has to do with what's wholesome and unwholesome. A lot of it has to do with the right amount of something. the right amount. So that's a whole smattering of ideas. I don't know if any of that has struck a chord, but I'd like to hear if there's any thoughts you have or questions, and also, what challenges you might be encountering these days, and maybe we can reflect upon some of the things that really matter to you. So I'll just leave it there for the moment.